This is the Final Word T20 World Cup Daily, Day 11 with Jeff Lemon and special guest Crick Viz Mastermind Ben Jones. Brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. We're in Eisenhower Park. We're just outside of the ground here where we've seen Canada play, I was about to say the United States of Pakistan. Maybe they are united. I hope they're united. Provinces, we'll figure that out another time. Ben, can you please tell me about this cricket match which went for 38 overs, thereabouts, in the space of 30 seconds?
It definitely happened. Pakistan win the toss and stick Canada in. They get off to a bit of a flyer. Shaheen goes for a couple of boundaries. Aaron Johnson, we love him. He smokes a half century and it looks a bit dangerous for about 20 minutes or so. Then they rather fall apart. Nicholas Curtin is run out by Imad Wasim. Lovely bit of work, and Canada managed to struggle their way to 106. Pakistan faff around a bit. It's all a bit traditional. It's all what we've tried to get away from in recent times, but they get there. They get the job done. They're still alive in the tournament. I think that's the shortest 30-second summary I've ever done. I'm very proud of myself.
There you go. You're definitely within the 30 seconds. I can feel that in my 30 seconds waters. It was a game where it was one of those ones coming into it. You thought, well, Canada have, they've pulled a surprise here and there. They played well against the US. They beat Ireland. Pakistan are, frankly, have been losing games they shouldn't be losing.
Would you describe them as mercurial, perhaps?
No, I describe them as dog shit. The first couple of games, they're poor bowlers. I mean, I don't want that to reflect badly on them. But I suppose apart from the super over with all the wides and so on.
Of course. They've not been great, and so this is a banana skin. Canada are a good team, but they're one that you would expect Pakistan to beat. And so the bottom line here: Pakistan are not out of the World Cup. They have beaten someone. They have won a game of cricket, and that, according to my expert analysis, is better than losing.
That is better than losing. We are all over this. We've been running the winning better than losing viz, and it has come up in favour of winning. But it wasn't entirely a fait accompli. Like you said, there's a moment when Canada's batting where you go, well, okay, they might make 130 or something, which could be testing. And even when they got past 100, it was like, okay, this can still be difficult because we've seen teams struggle. We saw the South Africans struggle to chase that sort of score against the Dutch. We saw Pakistan struggle to get 119, and with all of the pressure on them, it was no certainty that they would actually get this run chase sorted. In the end, they did. Rizwan, the main factor there with his half century.
Yeah, and it was, again, we kind of touched on it. It was not a revelatory performance in the power play. We saw that they faffed around at the start of the innings against India, and that probably cost them. And we saw them faff around at the start of the innings against the USA, and that definitely did cost them.
They had more faffing room here.
Yeah, they did have more faffing room, and also I guess the more you faff, the better faffers you become.
Yeah.
But
and you become Faf du Plessis.
That was my next line. Thank you.
Sorry, it was right there. It was sitting on the table. I stole it.
That's all right. It's poor hosting. But essentially, there was I think they were 20 for 1 after 4 overs. Saim Ayub came and went, brought back into the side to try and give a bit of impetus at the top of the order, and did not, die wondering. He played a lot of shots like he tends to, but nothing really came off. And so then it was back to Babwan, to Rizbar, and they hit gaps and they ran hard and they did what they always do, and they
sound like Star Wars characters.
I've never seen it. I'll take your word for it. And they were in control. They were never going to lose the game, you felt. It wasn't as jeopardous as the India game. They were, I think because they didn't have the looming spectre of Jasprit Bumrah, he hasn't switched nationalities and become a Canadian overnight, as far as I'm aware. And so it was a little bit more comfortable, as far as any Pakistani run chase can be comfortable. They tried to sprint over the line at the end with Fakar skewing one up in the air, and there were a couple of little errors, but that was the bit where they were trying to stretch their legs for net run rate. So we'll give them the balance of probability. That was the right thing to do.
I think it was mostly about Pakistan's bowling today. It was interesting. There was that bit at the start because you have Johnson who comes out and crashes a couple of boundaries off Shaheen, who doesn't bowl a good first over. And then you have Navneet Dalawal, who batted so well against the USA the other night in a way which gets forgotten given that they ended up losing the game. He smokes a boundary off Naseem first ball, and you're like, oh, hello, we are away here. Like, there's a possibility of something good happening. He drives the one off Amir, doesn't he? And it's Johnson who drives the one off in the second over off Naseem. And Dhaliwal gets that boundary away, and then he gets bowled because that's the sort of thing that seems to happen if you're opening the batting for lower ranked teams against really good fast bowling. Is they're like, okay, you can have that one boundary, but I'm now going to jag one outrageously back off the seam and clean you up.
I think it's one of my favourite phrases in cricket is it's burst through him, and they had a lot of that today. Johnson eventually goes and he is burst through by Naseem. That one actually probably kept a little bit low. If we're talking, we've spoken a lot about the pitch. We're not going to talk about it today because it's boring, but this one played better. It was a fresh wicket. It's the first time it's been used, so we know that there is some good conditions in this ground. Unfortunately, it's not going to exist in 48 hours time, so we'll never get a chance to see them again. But no, I think the start of the Canadian batting innings, or the good bit of it from their perspective, was the very way they kind of went aggressively at Pakistan's mistakes. We've seen a lot of teams have success here by hitting a good length, that kind of 6 to 8 metres, and letting the pitch do its devastating horribleness. Pakistan were a bit more generous. They kept on pitching the ball up. They kept on looking for swing, and Canada came at them. They smoked a lot of boundaries, and it did look 40 odd after the power play. They were going to post a good total. The quality of Pakistan's attack varies from day to day, but they are all good bowlers, so it's really hard to keep that pressure up, particularly if you're not necessarily the highest quality side across the board. So I think Canada took the right approach. They did keep on going. They did keep trying to hit boundaries. I think they had to post 130, 140 to really hurt Pakistan. But it went from being a very exciting contest to not necessarily the best spectacle quite quickly after the run out, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, and maybe after, I suppose Johnson getting out, almost the damage is done by then. I mean, he's playing so well. Like, he's a big, strong, broad-shouldered dude who can absolutely muscle the ball. He smokes that 6 over cover.
He hits the ball so high. I think that's the thing. Kyron Pollard does this as well, did it, I guess, is that, everyone else is trying to hit the ball kind of there, and he's going like, get there. And there are so many times where you're seeing the ball, it's obviously going to drop to cover, and then it's gone 4 or 5 metres over the boundary. And not really understand, it kind of defies the laws of physics of it. But I really like watching him bat. It's one of those guys that, very basic point. We get more associate cricket. You get guys that you haven't seen before. Yeah. It's exciting. We all remember why we like cricket. It's not always just, as that very good tweet goes, Sunil Narayan bowling to Quinton de Kock in different uniforms. It's sometimes nice to see new players in new conditions.
And to see the fact that they're bloody good cricketers. So, and both of those ones, like you say, they're those ones that hang and then carry over cover of Harris and then down the ground. Was it Amir who smashed down the ground for that 6?
There's a shot off Ralph where it was almost like a tribute to the Kohli shot at the MCG. It was a bit fuller, and a bit wider. It was a worse delivery, but it's 145, and he absolutely smoked it inside out over cover. The cameraman unfortunately lost it with the ball follow, and so we didn't necessarily immediately understand quite what was going. Quite what was so good about it. I thought it went a lot squarer, but it literally went straight over cover, off the back foot, just punched. Yeah. Unbelievable shot.
Yeah, and the one down the ground, it's off Shaheen, where long on and long off are both back, and they meet and stand underneath the ball together, and then just watch it go over their heads. They're like, hang on, surely that was coming to one of us, but it did not come to one of them. But in between those sixes, Nicholas Curtin, the run out, I don't think it was Johnson's fault. I mean, he just hits it straight to cover, and Curtin takes off, and the ball's gone straight to cover, and then Curtin has to turn around and go back, direct hit. Curtin's blah blah, too easy, not going to do the joke. But I've just referenced the fact that I didn't do it, which is sort of the cowardly way of doing it. But because Curtin's been so good, and you wouldn't necessarily have picked him as Canada's best player before this tournament. He hasn't always had the most convincing record, but he's been so composed in the 2 wins they've had so far, and while he was out there with Johnson hitting, that's when there was this possibility of it really going somewhere. And when he's run out, it's like, well, Johnson has to do it all on his own, and he gets to 50, but then Naseem, he goes across the line basically, and Naseem gets one. He sort of backs away and punches through off, doesn't he, and misses it and loses leg stump.
It does keep low. I said it before, but the next ball, the first ball to the next batter, lands on almost exactly the same spot as we showed on TV, and it leaps about a metre higher. So again, the slight whisperings of inconsistent bounce, you'd say, if you were being polite. So I think we can give a bit of credit to Johnson for that. But yeah, I think it was always a little bit tough to be a one-man job to take them to anything reasonably competitive, as we saw. But famously, Pakistan are not always playing the opposition; they are often playing themselves. Yes. And so there was always the faint idea that they could have mucked it up.
And you've seen, the pitch was doing something for Harris Ralph. He gets 2 in 2. He gets the ball to jump. He gets an edge to slip. He gets a top edge pull shot behind. So there was something there for faster bowlers, which made it interesting, I suppose. Even though Pakistan were able to keep a lid on Canada through the rest of that innings, Naseem, after he goes through Johnson. I mean, Kaleem Sana sliced a gorgeous boundary over point, a gorgeous 6 over point in the end, but really, Shaheen didn't give away any. Everybody ends up with very tidy figures: 2 for 26 for Harris, 1 for 21 Shaheen, 1 for 24 Naseem, 2 for 13 for Amir, ridiculous off 4 overs, and Imad none for 19. Interesting that Shadab Khan didn't bowl at all. I know his bowling's declined. Is he kind of done as a leg spinner?
No, not at all. I've got my Islamabad United hat on here, obviously. I love him dearly. He's a fantastic player. He is an extremely fluctuating player in terms of his form. He is a guy who can be the best player in the world with bat and ball, and then all of a sudden fall off a cliff. It's just always been the way with Shadab. I guess that's what happens when you are an ultra-aggressive batter who also bowls wrist spin. They are 2 very extreme skills.
Right, the things you are most likely to bugger up.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think, to an extent, is always just going to happen. It does give this sense that Pakistan don't really know what they're trying to do. We saw it with the selection as well. They've worked through all their players already. Today Ifti takes his turn on the bench and Ayub comes back in. Azam Khan started in the team, drops out immediately after one game and one failure against the US. Shadab's in the team but not bowling. It doesn't really give a sense of tactical cohesion, which we don't necessarily expect from Pakistan. But when they've been at their best in T20 cricket over the last couple of years, they've been really taught, they've been really clear with their plans and their usage. Guys have operated in particular phases, and the batting has been the kind of necessary evil, so to speak. We are going to get 160 because our bowling knows exactly what it's doing. The way they bowled today on this pitch, they got results eventually, but I think that was because of batting failures rather than necessarily good plans. And also Shadab's not bowling, so if he's not batting and he's not bowling and he's not being trusted to work to the middle, what's he in the team for? They shouldn't drop him, no question. They shouldn't be like the 50 over World Cup where Assam Mir comes back in. They should stick with him and hope that he comes good. But it just all speaks to this slight muddledness, I'm going to take away the word slight there, muddledness, that is a frustration as someone who really wants Pakistan to turn up and showcase all these amazing players.
And if they're not going to give you an over against Canada, when are they going to give you an over?
It's that sense of this is a chance to get someone into the tournament. If he comes in, he bowls 3 overs, takes a couple of poles, and suddenly he's a confidence player. You've got him back for the next game. The Ireland game is going to be massive if it gets played. We'll come to that in a second. And if you do get through, you want Shadab Khan fit and firing. You want everyone at the top of their game. At the moment, they've probably missed an opportunity there.
So Kaleem Sana, they didn't get much off the bat from him early. Jeremy Gordon, big Jeremy, who had that over in Dallas, but came back strongly against Ireland. Mohammad Rizwan can't lay bat on him in the first over, takes 6 balls to get a run. But they still end up at none for 9 after 2 overs because there are 5 wides from Kaleem Sana. That hurt. That was such a big giveaway early on and allowed Rizwan and Barbara to sort of settle into their game, I suppose. And then, they're just ticking along, but there is not many 4s on this ground. There's Rizwan's cut through cover is the one I remember. Smoked it between cover point and cover, and it stops and he gets 2.
It's crazy. We spoke about it the other day with Adam on I think after the Netherlands-South Africa game when we were previewing the India-Pakistan match and saying it's not necessarily the pitch for the 2 Pakistan openers. When you're hitting those gaps, you want Dubai, you want the ball skipping off, you want the oval. This is about as far from the oval as possible. Yeah. And I think what we've spoken a lot about with the South African batters, if they've been struggling here, having to play here all the time, and then they're going to get to go and play on some better wickets. Pakistan just have to hope they get the opportunity to do that because they've really failed here consistently to adapt to the conditions in their 2 games here. They've just about got over the line. And you don't want it to be an excuse. You don't want it to be like, well, what are we supposed to do? Because on this kind of conditions, because guess what? Low-scoring conditions are supposed to be where Babar and Rizwan become valuable. It can't be where, oh no, I can't do it if it's low-scoring in this particular way. Right. You can't be demanding the perfect wicket for your skills every single time. It's a World Cup.
Yeah, I need a 120 strike rate wicket, and that's all I can play on.
I'm looking for a man in finance.
So Saim Ayub gets out. Dylan Haliger, who has a bit of a knack for this, gets an under edge. They end the power play at 1 for 28, which is kind of funny in itself in a T20 international. And then Junaid Siddiqui, the leg spinner, he gets a bit of tap, but he was where the pressure came off. Barbara's come in at first drop. He skips down and pumps him over long off for 6, and they're able to sort of loosen things up a bit, I guess, and get things going through that partnership, and then just work the ball around pretty much from then on until Babar Azam gets out, which is a kind of against the run of play situation when he manages to run the ball off the face of the bat while leaving it and get caught. And Mova, the wicketkeeper, who's going the wrong way, has to come flying back the other way and take the catch. Oh, wait, that was the Ayub one when he went the wrong way. Anyway, he took two good catches.
There you go, that'll do. I think just in general, just speaking about the Canadian bowling in this period, you spoke about the wides. We've seen what you can do on this pitch if you are just very disciplined, if you're just very solid. You don't necessarily have to do a huge amount to get a huge amount. And Canada today, they were just a little bit sloppy, like you say. There was a couple of poor fielding efforts. That half-hearted. I think it was a backward point or on the 45. I can't quite remember where the fielder kind of just half goes for it. Probably could have got there with a bit of a better effort and moving across a bit quicker. They weren't quite at their best intensity today. Which, to be honest, it's a damning indictment of Pakistan at the moment. That if Canada really had turned up, they probably would have had a chance to turn them over. So I think that they might.
Literally 130 would have been.
Yeah, and 130 on this is a lot of runs. So let's not pretend that it's a normal game of cricket, but a little bit more intensity, a little bit more discipline with the ball, and Canada probably would have got Pakistan into something of a similar hole to where they found themselves against India.
All right, we're going to look at group ramifications when we do the Hall of Fame after the break. Final word, World Cup Daily. It's brought to you by Westfield, about whom I'm going to tell you this. Remember the band Weddings, Parties, Anything? Well, they might tell you that every single Saturday is Father's Day, but in a much more real sense, Father's Day is this Sunday. At least it is if you're in England, because in Australia we have a different Father's Day. I can't remember when it is. I've never paid attention to it, but I think it's in September. Anyway, Father's Day this Sunday. If you have left your planning and shopping to the last minute, there's no better place to bring your padre than Gravity Max at Westfield, Stratford City. Send Dad for a whirl on the go-karts, a croon in the karaoke booth, or an hour of arcade games while you run inside to pick a card and gift. And by the time he's finished, he'll have no idea that you only just bought him another book about World War II. That's good. That is good copy. Westfield, Stratford City, where you will find the gravity that Isaac Newton wished he had discovered. Ramification. It did seem odd that they didn't try to run this down in a shorter period of time. And there was generally a school of thought on commentary that said, well, Pakistan and USA had a super over, so no net run rate damage there. Basically, the situation is this. USA's on 4 points. Pakistan can only get to 4 points. Thus, if USA beat Ireland, they will go through. If they lose to Ireland and to India, then they'll still be on 4 and Pakistan could catch them. And the theory is that if Pakistan just win, they'll make up the net run rate, given that they lost to India narrowly and they tied with the USA. I mean, okay, fine. Do you think this logic stacks up?
I think it is broadly true. However, I sense that you're about to take it down, so I don't want to commit myself too strongly.
Well, I mean, not take it down, but just that, so the USA were at positive 0.6, Pakistan were at negative 0.15 today. The win that Pakistan got to get today by a couple of overs, which is a decent win, only took them from negative 0.15 to positive 0.19. So if they had a similar sized win and the USA didn't lose much net run rate, they still wouldn't get past the USA. They're relying on India smashing up the USA hard enough that the USA lose a lot of pain, which could very well happen, or it might not. It might rain. Something weird might happen. It might be a narrow result on a pitch where it's been difficult for teams to score big. Who knows?
I'm going to do a terrible pun. If I was Pakistan, I'd be far more worried about net rain rate than net run rate, because if you mosey on over to the weather forecast for our time in Miami over the next week, a strange sentence for those of us who work in cricket, it's going to absolutely hose it down seemingly. So all it's going to take is one USA game, the one against Ireland, to get rained out, and that's the 1 point that takes them out of Pakistan's grasp, which then obviously renders the whole net run rate thing slightly moot. I do think the idea they needed to come out and smash, win, as Nasser was saying on comms, win and win well. It's always good to win heavily and to push harder. I think they probably could have, but I think that's more of a general strategic thing of Pakistan. They should be going harder, not because of the situation, but because of the game itself, the sport in general. I think that if they win their remaining games and the USA lose their remaining games, Pakistan will go through. So I've
only got one more game though, although it comes after the USA's 2 games, so at least they'd know what they needed to do.
If the remaining fixtures go Pakistan's way, if the results go Pakistan's way, I think they will go through and the net run rate will be in their favour. But, as I say, the rain's going to cause them all kinds of bother.
Ooh, okay, all right, we'll watch out for the skies. Unlike the 80s when it was just raining cocaine in Miami, it's going to be raining water for the next little while. Haris Rauf went to 101 T20 international wickets for Pakistan today, second behind Shadab Khan with 107, 13th all time. Do you want to know what was an odd thing for me on that list? Ish Sodhi's played 116 T20 internationals. It just always feels like he's been the guy who's in the squad who dips in and plays like once a tour, but I guess all of those once a tours have been a T20 international, and somehow he's been doing it for 11 years. It just didn't click in my head that he had played that much.
I guess the answer to the implicit question there is name the second New Zealand spinner. Is that, or wrist spinner rather?
Well, wrist spinner, sure.
Yeah. You're not leaping to why has Todd Astle not played another 100 at T20 internationals. It's T20 cricket. You're going to need a wrist spinner in there, and Ish Sodhi is a very underrated player. I just
didn't know New Zealand had played 100 T20 internationals.
I didn't like the underlying criticism of my former Welsh Fire colleague Ish Sodhi, Welsh Fire Cardiff legend.
He's a good bowler. He just doesn't get picked much by New Zealand. In my watching of the game, he's always the guy not playing.
Well, so clearly watching all the wrong games.
Not the T20 internationals. Hall of Fame. I did enjoy that in a world where people criticise Babar and Rizwan constantly for batting too slowly, they got the perfect game to bat as slowly as they wanted and do whatever they liked.
It was it's cruel. It's just like, it's like the mouse with the cheese. Like, what am I supposed to do? You this like slow lethargic chase? I'm not going to avoid it. I would like to nominate that shot over cover from Johnson because it was absolutely disgraceful.
It was good, and I do sort of like the fact that Pakistan, despite losing so drastically and so dramatically, I suppose, so in such high profile in their first two, could still stroll through the semis if it doesn't rain, or into the Super 8s rather. And my favourite bit was the announcement saying spectators are reminded that moving behind the side screens is not permitted during play. And I think what was happening was there was a guy with a flag and there were two high-vis security guards yelling at him from ground level, and he wasn't over the side screen, he was like way off to the side of the side screen, but it was the security guards in the high-vis shirts who were actually bothering the players, and they're standing there gesticulating and yelling and wandering around, and someone else had to run over to them and be like, get off the ground, get out of the way. They're like, what? So yeah, there's been a certain lack of an innate understanding from some in the American populace about how this game works.
It was kind of the reverse of what happened to us this morning when on the TV we were trying to take our crew photo, and we were trying to get onto the ground to have that photograph taken, but we were denied access to the ground because not all of us had the right thing on our passes. We were a bit like, we got here at 7 o'clock, can we just come down and have a photo taken? So yeah, we wouldn't have wandered in front of the side screens if we'd have done it. We'd have been in and out there, no bother. So
you're wearing all black, like everybody who works down the side screens should. You're not highly visible, and you would have blended straight in. All right, that's enough. That's the final word. World Cup Daily for the T20 variety on day 11. We'll be back on day 12 with USA India from here. The last game from New York City / Long Island, and then whatever happens overnight. On and on we go. Is there a game overnight? There's not a game overnight. Maybe
no
there is.
idea.
Okay, we'll find out. We'll let you know. That's what the show's about. See ya.